The venue cost $40,000 for a single evening, and every person inside dressed like they deserved to be there. Crystal chandeliers hung so heavy the ceiling groaned, and champagne moved through the crowd like a golden current. Then a young man walked through the front entrance wearing a plain white shirt, dark jeans, and sneakers with fraying laces. He carried no invitation, wore no watch, and had nothing on him that signaled wealth, status, or belonging. The room noticed him immediately, not with warmth, but with the quiet cruelty of whispered judgment passed between smiles. A woman in red silk crossed the ballroom floor, stopped 2 feet in front of him, and tilted her head. She told him he was making the room look cheap, and she said it loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Her friends laughed behind their champagne flutes, and the young man stood there without flinching, without defending himself, without leaving. He did not raise his voice. He did not explain who he was, and that calm unsettled her more than any argument could. 5 minutes later, the groom walked across the room with his arms already open and pulled the stranger into a long embrace. The whispers changed direction like wind shifting before a storm, and every assumption in that room began to collapse. His father's name was one that every person at that event recognized, a name that moved entire industries without making noise. The woman in red felt something heavy settle in her chest as the truth rearranged everything she thought she understood. What she did next surprised everyone, including herself, because it cost her something that money could never buy back. Stay with me, because what happens next will change how you see every room you walk into, and it begins right now. The Bellamy estate sat on a hillside overlooking the city, and tonight its ballroom glowed like a lantern against the dark sky. Marcus Bellamy had rented the venue for his daughter's wedding, and the guest list read like a directory of quiet power. Photographers moved through the crowd, capturing every designer label, every gleaming watch, every smile that was really a negotiation. Outside, valets sprinted between luxury cars, and the evening air smelled of jasmine and expensive cologne mixing together. Every single person in that room wore their wealth like armor. Every single one of them, almost. The security guard at the front entrance had worked events like this for 11 years, and he knew who belonged. So when the kid walked up at 8:47 wearing a white shirt and beaten sneakers, the guard's hand moved before his brain. He carried a small drawstring bag over one shoulder like he was heading to a gym, not a $40,000 ballroom. The guard blocked the entrance without making it obvious and asked one question. "Who are you here for tonight?" The kid looked at him, no panic and no apology in his expression, and said calmly, "The Bellamy wedding." The guard stared. The kid stared back, and with 200 guests pushing through the door, the guard stepped aside. His name was Jordan Calloway, and the moment he crossed that threshold, the room registered him like a wrong note in a symphony. People did not stop talking. They talked quietly about him, the way you do when you want someone to feel disgust. Jordan walked to the far end of the ballroom, near a window overlooking the city skyline, and stood there alone. His posture was straight, his expression was still, and he was not performing calm. He actually was calm. That made people more uncomfortable than anything else he could have done, because calm without status confused the room. Kayla Bellamy spotted him from across the ballroom, the bride's younger sister, stunning in a way she used deliberately. Red silk dress, hair blown out perfectly, nails matching her shoes, matching her bag. Everything chosen, nothing accidental. She held a champagne flute she barely touched because she counted every calorie at events where cameras circled like satellites. She saw Jordan standing by the window and stopped mid-sentence, turned to her friend Brianna and said, "Who is that?" Brianna squinted toward the window and said he came through the front door, in that outfit, and shook her head slowly. Kayla handed Brianna her champagne glass, straightened her shoulders, and walked across the ballroom toward the stranger by the window. Jordan saw her coming and did not move, did not look away, did not adjust himself to make her approach easier. She stopped 2 feet in front of him like she owned the floor between them, which technically her family had rented tonight. "Wait, are you lost?" she said, her voice pleasant the way a warning can be pleasant. "Because nothing about you says you belong here." Jordan looked at her for a moment before answering, his expression unchanged, and said simply that he was attending the wedding. Kayla glanced down at his sneakers, back up to his shirt, and let the inspection last exactly long enough for him to feel it. "I am not trying to be rude," she said, which was the meanest possible way to begin any sentence ever spoken at a party. "But you are making the room look cheap, and you need to leave," she said, and her friend behind her covered her mouth, laughing. Jordan said nothing, and the silence between them grew heavy, and Kayla filled it the way people do when quiet scares them. She asked who invited him, and he said one word: Trent. And Kayla's smile turned from amusement into something sharper. She pulled out her phone and said she was calling the groom right now to sort this out, because this had to be a mistake. Trent Hollis was 29, broad-shouldered, and currently taking photographs with the bride's grandmother when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He read the message twice, smiled, handed the grandmother his champagne glass, and cut across the ballroom without hesitating. Jordan was still watching the skyline through the glass when he heard the footsteps, and then a voice said, "Calloway." Trent crossed the remaining distance with his arms already open and pulled Jordan into a hug that lasted long enough for the room to see. "I have been looking all over this place for you," he said. "Why did you not text me when you arrived tonight?" Jordan said he did not want to bother Trent on his night, and Trent pulled back and looked at him like that was absurd. The room had gone quiet in a spreading circle around them, and Kayla stood exactly where she had been standing, her phone still in her hand. Trent noticed her expression, asked if something had happened, and Jordan said no immediately, and Kayla echoed it half a second later. Trent looked between them, understood enough, and chose tonight was not the night, then told Jordan to come meet the bride's father. They walked away together, and the crowd parted slightly without meaning to, and Kayla stood there watching them go. Brianna appeared beside her and whispered that she had asked one of the coordinators, and the name was Jordan Calloway, as in Calloway Group. Kayla felt something drop in her chest, like a stone falling through water, and she whispered, "Say that again." "His father is Derek Calloway," Brianna said. "The Derek Calloway. Hotels and tech infrastructure and 3 consecutive years on the Forbes list." Kayla said nothing, because the name did not need an explanation. It needed a moment of silence for what she had just done. Word traveled through the room the way it always does, fast and wrapped in whispers dressed up as concern. "Did you hear about the kid?" When Derek Calloway himself walked through the front entrance at 9:15, the room rearranged itself around his presence without being asked. He wore a clean gray blazer, had quiet eyes, and carried the kind of stillness that made rooms softer when he entered them. He scanned the ballroom, found Jordan in under 10 seconds, and moved toward his son without stopping for champagne or small talk. He placed his hand on the back of Jordan's neck the way fathers do when words are not enough, and stood beside him. Kayla watched from across the room and saw the entire ballroom tilt slightly in their direction, and she understood what she had done. The red silk dress felt too bright, the room felt too loud, and she found a quiet corner near the coat check and stood there alone. She was not cruel by nature. She volunteered twice a month at a youth center. She read books and cared about things that mattered. But she had grown up in rooms like this one, and in rooms like this, appearance was information. And tonight she had read it wrong. Standing by the coat check, she made a decision. Not like a light turning on, but like a weight dropping, sudden and irreversible. She walked back across the ballroom floor without her champagne, and without her friends flanking her. And Jordan saw her coming. He recognized the difference immediately. The shoulders were lower, the walk was slower. Something had changed behind her eyes since the last time. She stopped in front of him and said, "Can I have 2 minutes?" speaking to Jordan only, not the group around him. Trent made a small gesture and the others drifted away. And now it was just the two of them at the edge of the dance floor. "I owe you an apology," she said, and her voice was steady, but the steadiness cost her something visible that she did not try to hide. "I talked to you like you did not belong here. I made assumptions based on your clothes, and I said it loud enough for people to hear. That was cruel, and it was wrong, and I am sorry," she said, and she held his gaze because she owed him that much. Jordan was quiet for long enough that the silence became uncomfortable, and then he asked her one question that changed everything between them. "Do you actually believe that?" he said. "Or are you apologizing because you found out who my father is tonight?" Kayla felt that land exactly where he had thrown it, and she did not rush to answer. She actually thought about it. "Both," she said. And I know that is not a great answer, but it is the honest one, and I would rather give you that." Something shifted in his expression, and he said, "Okay, I believe you, and I forgive you, because being angry about it changes nothing useful." She asked why, and he said, "Because you came over here when you did not have to, and that matters more than the mistake." He paused and then said his father was the reason he came tonight looking like this, in a plain shirt and worn sneakers. Every year, at least once, his father made him show up somewhere he was expected, wearing nothing that gave his name away. "He calls it the real test," Jordan said. "Not a test of me, but a test of the room and everyone standing in it." Kayla asked what the room did tonight, and Jordan looked at her steadily and said 4 words. "You were there, Kayla." She thought about that long after the wedding, not just that night, but for weeks, driving somewhere or sitting in a meeting or getting coffee. Derek Calloway found his son near the end of the evening, when the crowd had thinned and the music had gone soft. He asked how it was tonight, and Jordan said, "Different this year." And his father asked how so, and Jordan told him everything. "Someone actually came back and apologized," Jordan said, "genuinely, I think." And his father was quiet for a long moment afterward. Derek looked at his son and said, "That is rare." And Jordan said, "I know." And Derek asked what he did. "Forgave her," Jordan said, and told her why. And Derek nodded slowly and put his hand on Jordan's shoulder and said, "Good." That was all he said, but it was enough, because some words carry more weight when they come from a father who means everyone. The last thing Kayla saw before leaving was Jordan and Derek standing by the window. Same posture, same quiet, like stillness was inherited. 3 weeks later, Kayla was back at the youth center in Midtown, and a 14-year-old boy in an oversized hoodie walked in late. He sat in the back without making eye contact, and some of the other volunteers glanced at each other the way people do in certain rooms. Kayla pulled up a chair, sat beside him, and asked his name. And the boy looked at her sideways, suspicious, and said, "Dre." She did not push, she did not judge. She just stayed there, and after 10 quiet minutes he started talking on his own. She never told anyone about the night at the wedding. She never posted about it. She never made it a story about how she grew. She just carried it, because some lessons do not need an audience, and the ones that truly matter usually never do. You know this feeling well. The moment you looked at someone and decided who they were before they ever opened their mouth to speak. You have done it in hallways, in waiting rooms, in grocery lines. You saw the outside and believed it told the whole story. Was there ever a time someone judged you before knowing you? A moment where you felt invisible in a room full of people? Remember this. The kindness you show when nobody is watching is the truest measure of who you really are, and it always returns. Remember this. Your worth is never decided by what you wear or carry. It lives in how you treat people when it costs you something. Remember this. The most expensive thing in any room is never the chandelier. It is knowing who to look at and why you almost did not. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that quiet dignity still exists in a loud and careless world, please do one thing. Subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories and join this community of people who still believe that stories can open the most tightly closed hearts. Press the like button to share a little love with this story and help carry these words to someone who quietly needs them tonight. Every time you share one of these stories, you hand another person the same chance to feel exactly what you felt sitting here with me. Until next time, stay gentle and stay humble. And never underestimate the quiet power of one honest act done when nobody is looking. Sometimes that one small gesture changes a whole life. And maybe for someone out there listening right now, that person is you.